Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it is me. It's been quite a while. Well, I'm so sorry for being inactive, but you see, I was working on a bit of a project. It's this game you see in front of you. Welcome to the. Now, this game is a game that I submitted as an entry for a game jam, the GMTK 2019 game jam. For those of you who don't know, a game jam is essentially a contest involving game developers where a game dev is given 48 hours to make a fully playable game from beginning to end. But to add a bit of spice to the challenge, you have to make the game fitting a certain theme that they give you at the very beginning of the contest. And you have to make your game with that theme. So, for those of you who are wondering, yes, I'll tell you what the theme is in a second. This is the game that I made in 48 hours, and this is the. Now, as I'm approaching this red door here, everything you see was made by me and made in 48 hours. This is quite a challenge, and this is the adventure, only one. So this was the theme given to us, and I was super excited and at the same time super confused. I didn't know what to do. What you can see here is the apartment, and all the models. The apartment was essentially a room that I built because I wanted to give it a feel of loneliness, fitting the theme only one. And that's why I also came up with the cleverly named title, The. What you do normally in games is you use cubes as reference points to see what's going to go where. So some cubes could be used as cars, fridges, laptops, tables, cabinets, chairs, whatever you can do to make it pop and make it look, well, like an apartment. So I wanted to put cubes here and there, make windows, and even a door, just so that it could actually look like an apartment. For those of you wondering what the game was about, well, my game consisted on you, the player, being a defender of the colors, since your world has gone completely grayed out. So you had to protect these colors, red, blue, and green, and that was essentially it. I wanted to give that theme, much like Superhot, where everything is just white and the only colors are the ones worth protecting. And of course, there's my little player. So, yeah, there we have it. A little capsule, which always works for when you're making an FPS game, since all that matters is the camera. But I wasn't feeling super satisfied with the apartment since it was all cubes, so I changed it. And I added a bunch of models that I made using a 3D modeling program called Blender. And here you have it, the tutorial, a lamp, papers, but I wanted to focus on something else, the movement. So of course, when I say the movement, I mean the player movement. For this, I just slapped on some code. This is essential code for an FPS controller, which is just, how the player moves in an FPS. And this is Visual Studio, a program that you use for C#. Yes, I do C# programming, and this is the scene I built. At first, it just started as a bunch of cubes and white ground. But next was the level, or should I say, levels. I wanted to start with making something where you had to defend the color, and this scene right here is the end result. I'm going to show you how I made it step by step so that way you guys don't miss out on any of this. First, I started off with making a bit of a city, okay? This was mostly conformed of cubes, much like the apartment. I made them different shapes and sizes, but I wanted to line them up so that it looked like you were living in a big city. That big glowing triangle right there was what I used to reference the fire. That little black capsule you can see there is the enemy AI, and then the white one being the player. In the end, I got something like this. I wanted to give it sort of a Western-like theme, where the enemies was right in front of you. And as you can see, I'm currently moving around, looking around, but most importantly, we have an enemy. I also slapped some basic enemy AI code. Now, to attack the enemy and to kill it, I also did some weapon coding. This was stuff I've pretty much learned over the past couple of months, and I wanted to add an axe and an animation, which really gave it more of a weapon-like vibe. With this in mind, I was able to create what was essentially a weapon script, where you just clicked and you'd attack. And as you can see, I'm very excited. I wasn't satisfied with the enemy, so I decided on making this cool-looking fader, is what I call it. It was a model I used making a program called Magical Voxel, which is a 3D modeling program, all made out of pixels. Here was a problem, ladies and gentlemen. The first day when I finished, I wasn't feeling good. I genuinely didn't think the game was good enough since it didn't have a proper mechanic. It was basic. But then, eureka, I had an idea. The mechanic. So, I got out of bed and I started writing this piece of code. The mechanic was essentially this. Instead of doing multiple things at a time, since gamers are used to that, I took something that you guys are so used to and made only one of it. You used Q to look around and E to move around, but you couldn't do both at the same time. I decided on adding a particle effect as well, just so that it could look like you could really see that you're changing abilities, since it wasn't that obvious to the player. But of course, I can't forget of the HUD, the HUD, where I essentially just made some code so that it would activate it. This is all just text, vision, and movement. I did this just so that you guys could more see, I guess, clearly see what it is you're doing, whether you're moving or you're, looking. I also added more objective text, just so that the player knew what they had to do, protect the fire, and defeat the faders, etc. Of course, then you have the enemies over there, which I did multiply in numbers, but I wasn't feeling fully satisfied, so I added some fog to make it look like the enemies were coming out of nowhere. And I ended up with this sort of scene. I was really proud in the end and feeling super satisfied since I actually had a scene where you could fight enemies. And also, I thought my mechanic fit the theme well, but of course, that's all up to you guys. The rest was essentially copying and pasting. I went to the scene and copy and pasted it. So, in the fire, which is all red, I made it blue, as you can see here. I used a blue ball to represent the water, and a blue bat that I also made using voxel. With this, I just positioned it next to the player, changed some of the HUD, most of the colors, and with that, I had another playable level. It was the same thing essentially, nothing different except the water and the weapon. The scripts were the same, the damage and everything, but I thought it was a nice touch because at least players were realizing that they were in different worlds. And besides, it gave them more to play around with. I certainly had a lot of fun with it. But of course, you guys, for those of you who saw at the beginning, there was also a green color. So, I had a green scene as well. This one I had more time on because I had made a tree previously for another project using voxel, so I just slapped that one on there. But I wanted to change the weapon to something else, so I used this. It was a nice little green shield. When I had the scene, I also added some animation, making it a bash, and with that, I had 3 levels and 3 different weapons and colors. I also added these colliders, where if the player triggered it, then you'd end the level. And I hope you like my little wordplay there. You won the. I definitely was satisfied with it. The final thing was the color choice section at the very beginning of the game. It was very simple, really. All you had to do was choose 1 out of 3 colors, and then you were directed to the next scene. So, if I chose, for instance, red or blue, I don't know which one I'm going to pick, then I'd go into the blue apartment. And the same thing would work if you picked green or red. And that was essentially it, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you very much for watching the video. The is my very first entry, and this is in fact my very first game jam ever. I was super excited and I really loved the theme. I want to congratulate the GMTK game jam, the GMTK channel. I'll be leaving a description so that you guys can check him out because his videos are really cool and I suggest you do if you want to learn how to be a game developer and in general just want to learn about game development yourselves. I hope this thing taught you something about the game jams, and I will be looking forward to, I don't know, maybe reading some of your comments or even checking some of your ratings for the game. This is ratings week, so you can actually leave a rating on my game right now. I'll also leave a description to the game page on itch.io. I'll leave the description in the link below. For those of you who have clicked on this video from the page, well, I thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope all of you guys enjoy and I don't know, I guess I'll be hearing from you guys shortly. But yeah, this was the making of my very first entry into my very first GMTK Game Jam 2019. So, I hope to hear from you guys soon. Thank you very much for watching. Cheers.